Welcome to Gardening Through Art. I'm Elise of Joyful Plant. I help artists craft sustaining brands with my Gardening Through Art method. Today, we are going to press flowers and leaves to create pressed flower art. This is a wonderful way to preserve blooms in the garden to be enjoyed later. Botanicals can be collected at any time of year, but may be specifically prolific in the spring and summer. Let's get started. Many flowers and foliage take well to drying. Select specimens with lower moisture content. Some of my favorites include violas, pansies, hydrangea, lavender, and roses. We will also use paper, a glue stick, and a pencil. First, select flowers or foliage that you would like to press. I will use this arrowhead plant. You can use a pair of scissors to remove any thick pieces that may cause decomposition, and arrange a press where there will be enough blotting paper to keep the specimen dry and enough space for them to dry consistently. We will arrange the botanicals usually face down on the blotting paper and layer other papers on top. Then we can create a weight, either with a press that stays together or putting a weight on top. Old-fashioned method might be using a book. We want to maintain enough distance for the botanicals not to overlap or trap moisture. And we will set the press in a dry place and check on them every week or two. There may be some that show signs of decomposition, and you can tell if it turns brown or if it maintains its color, and use your discretion for which pieces you would like to use. When you are satisfied with your dried pieces, it becomes time to create a piece of art that is from the garden. And this requires absolutely no artistic skill, just some willingness and imagination. We're going to use these blooms that I have dried to create a bit of a botanical mandala. And the reason that it is important for us to use the garden for our imagination is because our dreams are built in similar ways that the plants grow. The nature provides inspiration for our framework for understanding what is important in our lives, and artists can also create original fine art on paper just using plants. You might decide to do this just for your enjoyment and perhaps for a fine art show, or it might be marketed for people to be able to purchase. I'll begin with some toned paper, and I'll use a glue stick. We'll create just a circle of glue that will provide a base for our pressed art to be arranged. Depending on your style, you may decide to organize your pressed botanicals either by type or by color. And we'll want to work quickly enough for the glue to stay sticky. And depending on your style, you may decide to just jump into it and set them onto the arrangement, or you may arrange them first and then glue them down when you're ready. I would like to approach this as a very general wreath. Sometimes it can be nice as a color wheel. These are very beautiful in frames. With a dry environment, they can last for a very long time as fine art. I wouldn't worry if there are pieces that have fallen apart. There's really no such thing as perfect, especially when it comes to creativity, and feel free to continue to add to it. Much like a collage, this takes the pressure off of somebody who might be hesitant to make art. It's just fun. And it allows us some enjoyment of the garden in extending the season. All the colors go together, and you may create seasonal art. This is almost like a timeless wreath. Feel free to experiment with which plants take well to drying. And make adjustments as you learn. There's no wrong way to do this. You may choose to add a little bit of variety. And it doesn't have to be circular either. I'm going to add a little bit to the corners, just for fun. You may choose to use a centering quote or an anchor word that may motivate you in your gardening and in your art practice as well. Any artist can become a professional artist as we practice our craft, we develop a repertoire that can change as we learn from our experiences each season. Just as the gardener learns each year how to do things differently, an artist can go with the flow and enjoy every part of the process. Essentially, you can create bouquets that can be beautiful in frames or arranged in a multitude of ways that go from epoxy to fixative. So once you have created a bit of an arrangement that you like or will tolerate, you may think about the purpose and why it is that we use the garden as inspiration. And nature creates infinite inspiration for us. It provides guidance from learning opportunities in science and math. It provides nourishment. And some might see our imagination as one of the most essential pieces of spirituality for oneself. Whatever that means to you, I hope that you can enjoy the process of creating pressed flower art. And if you come up with a word or a phrase that allows you some inspiration, you might decide to add that to the center. I would like to use the word freedom. To remind me of the great privileges that we have in this beautiful earth to summon the most powerful pieces of nature to our piece of what an artist is for each of us individually. When you have created a piece of art that is not based solely on your art skill per se, it can remind us how fruitful the earth is and how rich the learning opportunities are. You can look at your piece, and if you think it looks a little funny, which it might, you can either enjoy that about it or add a little bit more. I'm noticing that this corner is a little bit drab, so I'd like to add some color. While these buttercups are often maybe even frowned upon in the landscape, I can celebrate them for their beautiful, cheerful yellow color on paper. Another benefit of creating art out of either your garden or what you may consider to be weeds is that when we pick the flowers, they might be less able to reproduce. So if I'm picking the buttercup, for example, it might not be taking over the yard quite as much. So it's a really ethical way to stewardship in terms of picking out what we would like to use for our art. And either you might decide to plant seeds of pansies or violas, or you might decide to take out some of the plants that you might not want to be growing there. I want to add just a little bit more of this fun pink flower. I believe it was a flowering cherry. Different times of the year might offer varying opportunities for different colors. You might even have some blooms that smell nice, especially if you have roses or lavender. And you might choose to play a little bit with the sizes. So although we kept it kind of small, at this point I'd like to add just a small amount of these petals that almost look like a celebration. And as an artist, it's a good idea to diversify your practice so you can get to know what you're capable of, and also it can inform your more practiced art forms. So as I create pressed flower art, it can strengthen my watercolor and printmaking. Even dried flower arrangements can be photographed and created into documents that can be sold. So something like this dried flower mandala could become a two-dimensional piece of art that can be printed even across the world. Your finished piece may be framed or set with a fixative Depending on the material, some people may enjoy using spray acrylic or epoxy. You can create infinite fine art straight from your garden. This kind of arrangement art is fulfilling for artists of any age to do. I hope you enjoy the process, and feel free to share your results on Instagram with the hashtag #GardeningThroughArt. I'm Elise of Joyful Plant, and I thank you for watching Gardening Through Art.